got in Facebook land. Or not Facebook land, YouTube. Oh, I forgot where I'm at. I just got off of Facebook. And so I thought, you know what? Let me come over here to YouTube real quick. I can redo the same thing over here in YouTube real fast. Whoop, whoop. Okay. I'm so sorry. I am so thirsty. So thirsty. All right. So those of you who might be new to my page, CW Carrie on YouTube, I have a page on Facebook at Crafting Up with Carrie. And every Monday night, I tell a true crime story and I do a little bit of a craft. So I thought, as I was just wrapping up on my Facebook page, I could just come over here and I could just tidy up on one of my crafts that I just did while I tell you all the same crime story. Whoa, what's that? Holy cow, we can do it twice, right? Okay, so these are kind of my rules of the story. Now, I don't know if I can see. I can't see comments, but if you guys, let me see if I can get it over here. Let's see what I can find over here. Let's see if I can do two things at one time. I don't know if I am that talented, but I'm going to give it a whirl. Let's see. So that way, because my son always has my phone. So let me see if I can find it. If he can find stuff on, he's two. If he can find stuff on YouTube, I can find it too. But let's see if I can find myself. But if you're here, say, hey, I would like to know that you're here. All right, here we go. Okay, I see that I'm here. I found my page, but I do not see that I'm live. So that's all right. That's all right. We'll keep going. Okay. So if you get here, say, hey, hi, Lisa. How are you? How are you? Okay. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of a crime story that we did just a few minutes ago on Facebook. If you were already there, I don't know who all was there on Facebook. I'm really sorry. But you could have been. Okay. This is going to be, this is my rules. I am going to tell you what I'm using, what I did and what I'm doing and then I'm just going to start doing the craft. I can't really read comments too much while I tell a story because I get distracted very easy like squirrel. This story, you can find it on Google, I would assume, is a great search engine. You can find it. You can get more information on it. I am not the expert on this crime or any crime that I talk about, but this is just some information that I found while researching this information. So if I have it wrong, feel free to correct me. No worries. But just try not to get ahead of the story and give out information ahead of time because then it just kind of ruins it for everybody. Anywho, okay. So what I did is I made some prayer beads, right? So this is what I made on my live with Facebook, right? So these are just some natural beads that we beaded in a pattern whatever pattern you want to do with whatever beads you got. Then I took these crosses, which came from Hobby Lobby kids section of the cross. $3.29. You get 24 crosses. I glued two together. So when you glue two together, you get that seam. See that seam? Not so pretty. So then you just take some of this plastic wood fill. I probably got this at Home Depot more than likely. And I just packed it in here to cover up those seams. Once it dried a little bit, I just took my sanding sponge and I smoothed out my edges, made that wood putty, that plastic wood, whatever you call it, smoothed out so that way I could paint it. And then my crosses look thick, right? They look like a thicker piece, but it's just too cheap. These crosses just put together. And you paint the cross whatever color you want. So see it's solid. So what I did is I took my drill bit and I drilled a hole in my cross. If you don't have a drill, take a nail. You probably can put it on like something solid and hammer a nail straight through, and you probably can make yourself a hole just the same, or a crocodile, whatever that tool is. Maybe that would work. Okay, so I painted these, put holes in it, made it all look pretty, and this is the end result. You got these different crosses, right? I got green, I got gray, and I got mineral, and these are all Waverly colors. Strung my beads. And now with this one, I distressed it a little bit. I like that distressed look a little bit better, getting some of this natural color coming out. So I'm going to play with these two crosses while I tell you this crime story. Are you ready? I got to take another drink of water because my throat is parched. Okay, this is a story. True crime story. True. Okay, now this is a story about Mary Morris. I say Mary Morris times 2. Okay, this is why. There was a lady by name of Mary Morris. She was born in 1952. Don't know the month, don't know the day, Couldn't find it. I just know she was born in 1952. So Mary Morris, at the time of the story, was 48 years old. She lived in the suburban area of Houston, Texas. So she worked at Chase Bank as a loan officer. So that's what she did for a living. So she was described as being a devoted wife, a great mother. Unfortunately, I don't know how many children she was a mother to. I could not find that information. But she was, her coworkers and her friends said she was very friendly and she was very outgoing. She had no enemies. Nobody could think of who could possibly want any harm to come to this woman whatsoever. So on October 12th of 2000, she left for work like she normally did in the morning. You know, says her goodbyes to her husband, does what she normally does, and off she went. So her husband was trying to call her throughout the day and he couldn't get a hold of her. It got him a little concerned, but not like too overly concerned. But when it got to be about 5 o'clock, the bank's closing, he's trying to get a hold of her. He couldn't reach her. He was able to get a hold of her supervisor. And the supervisor's like, hey, man, she didn't come to work today. We haven't heard from her. So alarm bells went off for the husband. And he's like, holy cow, we got to call her missing. So Mary Morris's husband, by the name of Jay, he called the law enforcement and he reported her missing. So what we find out later is that about 10 o'clock that morning on October 12th of 2002, somebody had called the fire department and said, holy cow, there's a fire over here. Y'all might want to come do something about it. But they didn't do nothing about it because they thought it was a controlled burn. So they didn't send nobody out there. They didn't do nothing about it. Maybe that's Texas. I don't know. But anywho, they did nothing. So about the time that Jay was calling his wife in missing, somebody else had called in and said, oh, there's a car over here along this highway area. It's smoldering. Also, I found that an ATV driver came across upon the car. So I'm not sure if the person that reported it is the same person as the ATV driver. Don't know if there was 2 or 3 calls in about this smoldering car or car on fire in the area. So eventually they said, well, maybe we should go check this out. We've had several calls on this. They finally go out and check the car. There is Mary Morris in the front seat of her car. She had been doused with gasoline and set ablaze. So unfortunately, she was so badly burned that the forensic scientist needed to take tooth fragments to be able to properly and officially identify her. So also when they found her, they realized that her wedding ring and her purse were missing. So they didn't have those 2 identifiable things either. So just kind of keep that in a box, just kind of like notate that her wedding ring and her purse were missing, and it took her teeth fragments to be able to officially and formally identify her. Okay, so now just a few days later, October 16th, so 4 days later or 3 days later, October 16th of 2020, another lady by the name of Mary Morris from the same town was violently killed. They found her. And so what are the coincidences of 2 people, 2 women, same town, same name, both violent I can't even spell DEATs. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, right? Okay, so the first Mary, nobody could figure out who would want to cause harm to her. However, the second Mary, not the same story. There was 2 people that raised some suspicion that might have some connection to her demise. So one of them would, of course, be the husband, right? So there was some thought that there was some disgruntledness, some unhappy marriage going on between Mary and her husband, Mike. Now, the story has it just days before her accident, her demise, her husband had accused her of having an affair with one of her friends. we're going to let that sit. I'm just going to say, like I said earlier, in my 53 years, usually when somebody starts pointing those fingers like that, they're usually talking about themselves. Just saying, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know this man. I don't know, but just saying in my experience, that usually is a red flag. Something else is going on up in there. Okay, so that is one person that has some suspicious thought being associated with her demise. Also, according to Mary, she was having some issues with a gentleman at work. His name was Dwayne Young, I believe was his last name. Anywho, she didn't care for this guy too much. And so I believe on October 16th of 2000, Mary's friend by the name of Lori Gemmel, Gemmel, went to one of the whatever clinic that Mary was working at the time. So the second Mary was a clinic nurse. From what I understand, she was more like a supervisor of several clinics. So she was at whatever clinic she was at. Lori went to there to go get a flu shot. So while Lori was there, of course, she's talking to her girlfriend, getting the lowdown of what's going on for the day. And Mary tells her friend that when she was done there at work, she just had some errands to go run. And then she was going to go home and she was going to make dinner. Sounded like just like a regular after work kind of thing for her. All right. So one of the errands that she had to run was to go to the pharmacy. When she got to the pharmacy, she called 911. She did that because she was on the call with the 911 operator, and she had said that there was somebody there that she knew from work, and it scared her. It made her whatever worried. So I just could not imagine the fear, the panic that must have been going through her at that time of the call. So anywho, she's on the phone with 911. She must have been in her car or going in that direction. So while she was being assaulted, she was on the phone. So the 911 operator, this whole thing is being recorded. Now, people didn't know that it was on a recording, but unfortunately, she didn't say anybody's name. There was just a very violent attack that went on, and the police never released the tape because it was pretty gruesome, pretty violent, pretty hard to listen to. So nobody really got to hear this, and unfortunately, it doesn't sound like she ever identified the person's name during the attack. So, so now let's go back to days before this happened to her. So what was going on is that there was this man, Dwayne Young, at her job. I'm not sure what his job was at the clinic, but he gave her the creeps. She didn't really care for him too much, and I don't think he cared for her too much. So there was one day she went into work. All of her things were just placed on her desk, and a note was left on there. And the note said, in quotations, DEATH, to her. So she took it as a threat, right? So she went home and she said to her husband, hey, I don't have good feelings about this guy. I need some protection. Will you help me get a GUN? So he helps her get a GUN. He registers the weapon in his name, shows her how to use it, and she left it underneath the seat in her car. Unfortunately, the day of this tragedy, she didn't get to use her weapon for some reason or another. We're not quite sure why. I have a theory, but we'll get to that at the end. Okay, so when the law enforcement found Mary, similar situation. They found her in her vehicle a few miles from her home in an offbeat area, sketchy little area off of her home. Very similar to where they found Mary number 1 just days earlier. Not the same area, but similar in terms of being off the kind of like the beaten path, so to speak. Now, whoever committed this crime tried to make it look like it was a SUICIDE. But the law enforcement already know better because they could hear it. They heard it, right? They heard it go down. So, but the person who did the assault must not have realized that she was on the phone and the whole thing was recorded. So this whole cover up of trying to make it look like that didn't fly. People didn't believe it. The crime scene that they saw. Okay, so also that they realized when they found Mary number 2, her wedding ring was missing. So now you have 2 Marys, 3 or 4 days apart, same name, same kind of MO in terms of how they found them, in terms of the demise, and also they look similar. They were both females, both white or maybe Hispanic, I don't know, but they both had brown hair, shoulder length. They look kind of similar. So if you don't really know who you're looking for, you might have found the wrong person. Just saying, I don't know. So crazyville. I'm telling you, this is just absolutely crazy. So anywho, so the police go and they interview this Dwayne dude, right? And they're like, hey, like, you need to tell us like where you were. I don't know what his alibi sounded like, but nothing really came of that. So then they looked at her husband, Mike. They tried to talk to him. He would not cooperate. He stated that during the time of this accident or this event, he was at the movies with his daughter. And however, he refused to take a polygraph test, and he would not allow his daughter to speak to law enforcement either. So no polygraph, wouldn't let anybody validate or verify his story. Oh, and I don't know how old his daughter was at the time. I couldn't find any information regarding him or their kids that he and Mary, his wife, may have had. Okay, so now you don't really know for sure if his alibi is true because he won't let anybody talk to anybody. But the police know this. They know that not too long after the police started questioning him, he went and hired himself an attorney. And then they found out that Mary number 2, the nurse, she had a $700,000 life insurance policy. So, you know, that just kind of made him look a little suspicious. Don't know what this man did for a living. But they're just saying it just kind of looked a little suspicious. Also, the police say around the time of her death, there was a 4-minute phone call placed from his phone to his wife's phone. Now, he is saying that no, he didn't. He kept trying to call her, but he couldn't get through. But the phone company said no, there was a 4-minute phone call. Now, I don't understand how that comes to play, given that they heard the whole phone call. So I don't know if they just hung up. I don't know how that all comes into play. But that made a difference in terms of what he said he was doing at the time of her death, I guess. The police thought it made him look suspicious. Okay, so people don't really know why exactly he was calling his wife. If you're in the movie theater, why are you calling your wife? Just saying, right? If you're really there with your daughter, you should be paying attention to that. I don't know, but the police kind of looked at him funny, but they didn't really have anything to hold him on or to really tag on him, right? It just doesn't sound right. Okay, so now Mike Morris says the phone company got it wrong, that that's not exactly what had happened. All right. But let's go back to the fact that both Marys had their wedding rings missing, right? Both of them had their wedding rings missing. So the police say that it's not uncommon that when somebody gets hired to do a hit, that they have to get something personal off the person so they can prove to their employer that the job was done successfully. So the thought is that whoever did this to both Marys took the wedding rings. Just saying. But they know the first one, they tried to stage it like a SUICIDE, but the police knew better because remember, they heard that phone call. And then the second one, they were trying to cover that one up because they set it ablaze. So they really were trying to cover up who exactly they were or wanted to point the finger in a different direction. All right. So that's why the police were thinking that maybe it was done by a hired hit because of the wedding rings that was missing from both of the women. Okay. So one day, several months after the death of Mary number 2, Lori was visiting and came across the daughter. And she noticed, whoo, almost fell over. She noticed the daughter was wearing Mary's wedding ring. So of course, what's a friend going to do? A friend's going to ask her, hey, where'd this ring come from? So Mike tries to play it off and says, oh, well, we just found the ring. I don't know. It seems weird that this ring that's been missing for several months, they found it. And what's the likelihood that that day of her demise would be the day she doesn't wear her wedding ring? Just saying, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. Okay. Just saying. But of course, nobody can really ask the little girl, where she found it, whatever. So the ring shows up. The little girl has the ring of her mother. Now, 6 months after this whole thing, said be October, November, December, January, February, March, April, around April of 2001, the first husband, Jay, from the first Mary Morris, he starts getting some bills. He received $2,000 worth of bills from the wife's phone card. Now, if you recall cell phones back in the day, we didn't have like these plans like we do now. Sometimes you had those cards and you had to, like pay for your phone time or whatever. So anywho, he starts getting these bills for this. And he's like, well, there's no way. My wife's deceased. She wouldn't have wrapped this up. So he turned that over to law enforcement. Law enforcement was able to track down the cell phone usage to a 16-year-old girl. And this young lady lived in Galveston. I don't know how far apart Houston to Galveston is, but this young lady claims that a month prior, she found this purse just in this parking lot, and in the purse was this cell phone. And so she started using it. Why not? However, when the family of Mary Morris number 1 looked at the purse that this girl said she got it from, they're like, this is not my wife's, or this is not my mom's purse. So nobody can understand. The girl must have just lied about what purse she found it in, or how she even found this cell phone and used it. But they were never to get any more information from this young 16-year-old girl and his wife's cell phone. Is that not crazy? A 16-year-old in Galveston. I don't know how. I should look that up, how far apart Galveston is from Houston. I don't know. And also another interesting fact of the story, and I forgot this the last time, so I told the story too, is after the incident of Mary number 1, somebody called, I want to say the local newspaper, and they told them that the wrong Mary, this accident thing happened to the wrong Mary. I would just say that if I got a phone call like that, I would probably try to look up, is there another Mary in our town? And maybe give her a heads up. But nobody said anything to Mary number 2. And they know something for sure happened to Mary number 1 because it's there in the news. I'm just saying that's just shady. So I kind of wonder what would have happened to Mary number 2 had she gotten a call to forewarn her. Would the police or somebody look more into it? Would they have given her more help? I don't know. It's just sad. Sad all the way around. I'm telling you. Okay. So, unfortunately, this crime happened in 2000. Nobody has been arrested. Nobody has been charged. Nothing has happened to anybody pertaining to this case because there was no physical evidence. There was nothing to pin these crimes on anybody. So nobody has been found guilty, served any jail time, had to return any insurance money. Nobody has had to do anything. And these crimes are just listed as not connected. The police said these crimes were not connected. It just happened to be a fluke that 2 people in the same town with the same name that looked similar, that were similar in terms of how they were found and the offbeat way that they were found. Is just a coincidence, as the police said, and they did not ever link these 2 crimes together, and nothing has been done to this day for these women and these families. I just feel for them so much. But that's it. That is the story about Mary Morris times 2 out of a suburb of Houston, Texas, in October of 2000. Another unsolved crime. And now we got 3 sets of prayer beads just for pennies. And I think these are absolutely beautiful. You can paint them whatever colors you want. I love the natural beads. And the sizes that I used are the 25 millimeter. I'm thinking maybe 16. I'm not sure what this size is, but this is the 25. I'm thinking this is like a 16 or a 20. I don't know, maybe a 14 or a 12. I don't know. These are just beads that I had, and I don't have the bags for them anymore other than the 25 millimeter. That's the only one I know for sure. All right. That is all I have for today with the true crime and crafting. And if you get a little paint on your beads like I did, I find that if I just sand it down a little bit, I can get that paint off. Oh, I got a lot of paint on these. I got to stain happy. All right, you guys, that is it. Thank you so much. Please subscribe to my page, CW Carey, if you've not already. I greatly appreciate your support. You can find my website at CW Carey as well if you like the shirt. If you are a crime buff and a crafting buff like myself, you may find that we'll see each other a lot more. All right, you have a great day. And like I always like to say, keep being kind to one another, but don't forget to be kind to yourself. If it's too late tonight, you might not be able to do any self-care, but hopefully tomorrow you can get some self-care in. You take care. Thanks for joining. I'll see you later. Bye.